Okay, we're just going to do a little follow-up video here, okay? And this will be video number 66, I believe. Okay? And we're wrapping them off quickly because we want to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about here. And before I give assignments out, it's best to give everybody a chance to look at this. And then we can talk about what I want to do tomorrow. So here's a multiple choice question from the region. It's very typical. It's really a vocabulary question, but you have to combine your knowledge of like terms, powers. You have to know what things are called, the list that I gave you before. So let's read it off here. We'll take our time so we can get better at this stuff. So it says, which describes, and we see this polynomial. It's obviously an algebraic expression. It doesn't equal anything. And there's only one variable here. They're calling it b. I told you to get used to that. I'll help you get used to it. They're either like terms or they're not. We'll have to put everything together. And then we used the word yesterday. I'll write it out here one more time. Is to classify. And sometimes they use the word simplify, but the context is always clear. You should be able to do it. So I don't need to read this off left to right. I just need to classify this, which means to simplify it first. If they're like terms, I'll put them together. I'll go left to right, and since it's standard form, the highest power goes first, followed in order by powers. So I look at this here, and I see that the highest power is 3. Does it have a mate over here? It absolutely does. Since there's a -1 here, a +2 here, I'll just X these out. Get out of your way quickly. And there's b cubed. Okay? And there should be a 1 there. I'm going to leave it off because their answers won't have that kind of thing. Okay? What's the next power going up? Oh, b squared. Does that have a mate? Does that go with anybody? No. So I just cross it out so I knew I took care of it, and then write 3b squared. Okay? There we go. And now I look again, and the next power is to the first. We're going in descending order, as mentioned before. And I go over here, and these are opposites, as you're well aware of from 7th grade. So that's 0b to the second, which we don't bother to write. And finally, the last guy left is just a number, and numbers, of course, are like terms, but that has no mate either. It can't combine with anybody. So I read this off, and I immediately cross out number 1. Well, let's make sure we understand our vocabulary here. Quadratic means degree 2. And quadratic will become a great friend of yours, not far down the road. One more time. Quadratic means degree 2. This is obviously degree 3. Okay? How many terms are there here? 3 terms. So it can't. So the highest power is degree 3, but we agreed already that one way or the other, you can say degree 3, or you can say cubic. So here, cubic, 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 but obviously it's not a monomial. There's more than one term. Obviously, it's not a binomial. There are 3 terms. So there we go with the correct answer. It's a cubic trinomial. And we wrote it out there, and that would be the correct answer. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly erase this guy. And I'm beginning to look at this and say, you know what, we have a good idea. We can do some assignments on this, not many. And we know how to classify. Maybe we could be tricked by some of the vocabulary, but the math itself is nothing more than 7th grade algebraic expressions if you look at it so far. Okay, so now I'm going to complicate matters just a little bit, and this is fair game in the regions as well. And I'm writing out this algebraic expression. It will become an expression. And for the weaker students, remember this is saying c squared times d squared, because if you remember in 7th grade, when 2 letters are next to each other and there's no space between them, we assume that it's multiplication. That is, we don't put the dot, it's just there. So if you've forgotten that, where you're not sure, then I'm explaining or re-explaining what was already explained to you. And so it goes on, kind of like a fantasy land, right? Who ever heard of such crazy things, right? And then d squared, c squared. So we look at this and we're asked to classify this as well. And we see that this is much different from the previous problem because we had two variables. Any letter they want. I told you 100 times. They can pick any letter they want. So we have to combine like terms if we can, and then sort things out by their highest power so that we can know the degree and thus classify the polynomial here, or if you like, algebraic expression. So I look for like terms, and boy, it looks pretty good here. I'm using the order of the alphabet, but this is the same as this. This is the same as this. Everything's the same. These are like terms. I can put them together. We'll talk about the next couple here. So if the powers are the same, if the terms are the same, that is, they're like terms, you just put them together and add their coefficients. Well, 2 p's, 4 n's, as anybody can clearly see from 7th grade, and the top term here is 2c squared d cubed. I pause for a second and say, well, kind of weird that, but it is what it is, and you're doing what you have to do no matter what. And now we go over here, and I circle these two guys, and are these like terms? Can these be combined? Well, the answer is yes, because CD equals DC. Didn't we say when we put two variables next to each other, we're multiplying it? It's like saying 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2, which we all agreed to. So these are like terms. We'll follow the order of the alphabet, but oh my God, I'll switch this off over here, and that becomes a plus. Just explain why I could do this. They're opposites. They're coefficients, a -1 here, +1 here. So all that's left is this guy here. Anybody want to tell me how to classify it? I'll wait just a second. You can think about what you want to do there. Oh, what's the highest power? 3. How many terms are there? N. So it's a cubic. We'll take cubic first because that's the adjective. Monomial. And you'd be expected on the Regents to recognize and name these things and classify it, even if they put all these crazy letters like they just did here. And I'm going to slow down just for a second, especially for the weaker students. All this is saying, for example, here, is you think of a number, anything but 0, because if it's 0, obviously it doesn't exist anymore, since anything times 0 is 0. Then you think of another number that's not C, because if this were C, as you learned in 8th grade, this would be C to the 5th. So C, the only condition of C or D is they're not the same numbers and they're not 0. That's it. So you think of a number, and then you can plug it in and evaluate it like you were doing in 7th grade. Thank God, I think we can pretty much avoid that. That's really boring work. And over here, it's not the like terms with this and this because there's an extra D. And I'll point out one more time, a lot of kids get confused here. I'll just write this out here. CD, C squared, D squared is the same as CD squared. And how do I know that? I use the power rule and I can get right back to the numbers. So we know these are the same. So C squared, D squared is certainly not the same as CD squared. That is, we're trying to say that C is separate from D. And the product of these two numbers, okay, is what's really going on there. So CD, you might say we want to equal, CD might equal another variable. So this gets a little confusing. They don't take it too far, so you'll be okay. But notice that, be careful with these guys. And by the way, what is C squared, D squared? I'll slow for a second. Well, by Jiminy Crickets, that's a quadratic monomial. And you could easily say degree 2 and be perfectly correct. Okay? A quadratic monomial. Why monomial? there's only one term left and everything's over. Okay? So with that in mind, I feel I can give you some assignments, and I won't give you a lot of them. It's all conceptual and what do the words mean. So I'm going to move on tomorrow, and we're going to add and subtract these guys. Okay?